So what if the world you see around you isn't actually real? And what if the true reality, the thing driving everything, is a blind, relentless force that's the source of all your suffering? Well, that's the unsettling universe that the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer lays out for us. In this explainer, we're going to dive into his masterwork, The World as Will and Representation, to really get our heads around his profound and, pretty challenging answer to the problem of just being human.
You know, Schopenhauer wasn't interested in philosophy as some kind of abstract intellectual game. Not at all. He looked out at the world and saw a puzzle, an enigma, where the only things he was sure about were misery and vanity. So his whole project really wasn't about finding some distant academic truth. It was about shining a desperate ray of light into that darkness, to find some kind of comfort, some form of consolation.
And to find that light, he knew he couldn't just offer up a few simple platitudes. Nope. He had to take reality itself, lay it on the operating table, and dissect it piece by piece to find the root cause of all our suffering and, hopefully, a way out.
So let's start there. For Schopenhauer, this wasn't just some casual inquiry. He was going head-to-head with what he called the tormenting problem of existence, this fundamental suffering that seems to be built into the very fabric of life itself. He really believed that philosophy's true job was to offer us some consolation. In what he saw as a pretty miserable world, philosophy was the one essential tool we had for understanding our own tragic nature, and maybe, just maybe, finding a path to some kind of peace in these fragile, short lives of ours.
All right, so how did he even begin this massive investigation? Well, he started by making a pretty radical claim. The reality you experience every single day is split into two fundamental, but totally interconnected, sides.
This right here, this is his most famous statement, and it's the absolute key to the first half of his whole philosophy. He argues that the world we see isn't objective reality. It's a mental picture. It's a phenomenon of the brain.
So building on the work of Immanuel Kant, Schopenhauer said our mind isn't like a passive camera just recording the world. Oh no, it's an active filter. It's an operating system. It takes in all this raw data and structures it using its built-in tools, space, time, and causality. And the crucial part is, he says these things aren't properties of the world out there. They're the tools of your mind.
He gave this whole process a pretty fancy name, the Principium Individuationis, the principle of individuality. But think of it this way. Raw reality is like this one big, seamless block of clay. Your mind, using these cookie cutters of space and time, presses down and creates all these separate shapes. You, me, the screen you're looking at, the chair you're sitting on. They only seem separate because our mind carves them up that way.
And this everyday world of separate things? He borrowed a term for it from Hindu philosophy, the veil of Maya. It's this beautiful, structured illusion. It's like a stage play that seems totally real while you're watching it, but it's masking a much deeper, more fundamental truth hiding behind the curtain.
Now, his predecessor, Kant, he totally agreed that there was a true reality behind this veil. He called it the thing in itself. But Kant basically hit a wall. He argued that we could never ever know what it was. Our minds were a permanent barrier. The truth was locked away forever. And this is where Schopenhauer makes his big revolutionary move. He says, nope, Kant was wrong. There is a way to peek behind the veil of Maya. There is a secret passage, a single, narrow door to the heart of reality.
And that door? It's your own body. See, you experience your body in two completely different ways. From the outside, you can look at it, observe it. It's just another object, a representation. But from the inside, you feel it directly. You feel its hunger, its urges, its aches and pains, its ceaseless, restless striving. That inner force, he says, that is the thing in itself. And he called it the will.
So, by discovering the will inside ourselves, Schopenhauer believed he'd found the master key to everything, the true engine driving all of reality. But as he looked closer at this engine, he realized it wasn't some benevolent, divine creator. It was demonic. He argued that this will is the inner essence of absolutely everything. It's in the force of gravity that pulls a stone to the ground, it's the energy that makes a plant reach for the sun, and it's the deep, primal source of all your own desires. But here's the really terrifying part. This single, unified force is completely blind and irrational. It strives and strives and strives for no ultimate purpose. It just strives for the sake of striving. This gives us our two competing versions of reality.
So let's just put them side by side. On the left, you've got the world as representation. That's the world of appearances, the veil of Maya. It's a world of countless separate things, all neatly ordered by our mind's logic of space, time, and cause and effect. But on the right, that's the truth. The world as will. It's a single, chaotic, unified force. It has no order, no reason, no goal, because it exists outside of the very concepts of space and time that our minds create.
So here's the billion-dollar question. What happens when this one single striving will gets fractured by our minds into millions of competing creatures in the world of representation? Well, it turns on itself. Schopenhauer uses this absolutely horrific image to show the will's true nature. It's an endless, brutal, agonizing cycle of consumption and suffering. This, for him, is the root of all misery.
Okay, so if the fundamental engine of reality is a blind, self-devouring monster, what on earth can we possibly do about it? This brings us to the final part, Schopenhauer's prescription, his path to what he calls salvation.
And the first step isn't some complex ritual or a secret chant. It's a profound shift in how you see the world. It's compassion. For him, true morality begins the moment you intellectually pierce that veil of Maya and realize that the other person, or even the other animal, is, on the deepest possible level, you. Their suffering is your suffering, because you are both just temporary manifestations of the exact same single will.
Now, he makes a really key distinction here. He is not talking about eros, that sexual or romantic love, which he saw as fundamentally selfish, just the will tricking you into perpetuating itself. He's talking about agape, a pure, selfless love that comes from recognizing this shared, unified identity. It's the feeling of suffering with another being.
But listen, compassion is just the first step on a much, much harder path. To truly find peace, he says, you have to actively deny the will within yourself. This is the path of the ascetic, of voluntary, conscious renunciation of the will's constant demands. This means rejecting the urges for pleasure, for food, and most importantly, for having children. To Schopenhauer, creating a new life was the ultimate tragedy. It was knowingly throwing another being into this endless, agonizing cycle of the will.
The ultimate goal of all this denial is a state he directly equates with the Buddhist concept of nirvana. Now, it's not death, it's a quieting of the will. It's an escape from that relentless hamster wheel of desire and pain. To someone who's still full of the will, it looks like nothingness, like emptiness. But to the one who has achieved it, it's a state of blissful, unbelievable peace.
And so we're left with Schopenhauer's final, haunting question. If our entire world is just the chaotic stage for a miserable, self-devouring will, is the only dignified escape to simply turn your back on all of it? To retreat into a blissful nothingness? It's a demanding philosophy for sure, but it's one that forces us to confront the deepest and maybe the most uncomfortable questions about what it even means to exist.